call, pull buyers and call, absolutely call. You have to be on the phone.
Just like, I feel like nobody knows any of the things you know. And so, like, give me just a couple of them. Where are you doing this? How are you doing it?
I will say people are willing to help you when you don't need help, when you don't ask. And yeah, you bet your ass I'm calling the bank to see if I had a check for XYZ amount of dollars. Will my check clear? It all starts in acquisitions, right? Like acquisitions needs to know what's going on in Dispo so they can feed that machine, because Dispo is what gets everybody paid, right? So if you have buyers in certain markets, you're going to want to build your acquisitions team to look for and hunt for and get under contract deals that fit that buyer's buy box. So you're just constantly feeding the machine. Like that's the easiest way to go about Dispo. Now, if you're going into new markets and things like that's a little refinement. You just got to try, right? But once you try, like you should still have your process in place, right? Like here we are, we get it under contract. Like immediately once I get something under contract, I'm going to a few different places and pulling buyers and I'm calling down the list. Like if I don't have photos or anything, like my objective is to talk to as many buyers in that area as possible. And I'm pulling from areas where the buyers kind of quote unquote already vetted, right? Like public records, I can see how many properties they've purchased and they've actually closed on. So I don't have to ask for things like proof of funds. Like I don't have to ask for things where I'm vetting if they're a daisy chainer or some bullshit. Like people want to log into places and say they're buyers because that's what they're taught in this industry. And they're fucking liars. Like I just avoid that at all costs. And I go straight to public records. I call because they're vetted. Titles transferred. That means they perform. And what I'm trying to do when I do that is I say before photos, hey, I have a deal coming down my pipeline. I'm just waiting to confirm all of the details. I think ARV, and I give a range, is what I do. Like, it is anywhere between here and here, because that all depends on what your finishes and your things are. I see this as like a light cosmetic, like just dump in X amount of dollars. Again, that's like what your crew costs you. Like that's different. I don't know that price, but roughly, okay? I get them to agree on that with me. Then I get them to agree like ARV where they can sell it at or how much they can make as a rental. Once I have them agree to all of those things, I then get them to commit to a walkthrough of the property. And I say, hey, once it comes down, I can send this to you first before anyone. If you can do me a solid and get me photos to confirm that what the seller told me was true.
Yeah,
and
I love it.
I start there. Because that also gives me a gauge on, do I need to tell my acquisitions person, like, we need this much lower? But I don't do that until I've at least, bare minimum, had 3 people confirm what I'm saying is accurate.
Yeah, so you're not just taking one buyer's advice and saying, okay, let's go.
No. And the reason I pull county records and do it that way is because I can see what they purchased at. So do you want to play hardball with me? Because I will tell you, like, I see what you purchased. Where's your repairs? Like, what were your repair costs? I can see what you put into this property, and it doesn't look like it was much. You know what I mean? Like, I can call them out on their bullshit. Like, I am not new to this game, and I'm not an idiot. So don't treat me like one. Like, I can continue to feed you deals to feed your business. Like, this is how you make money. This is how I make money. Let's build a great relationship here. But it's not going to be you're just trying to run me over. Because I'll cut you off.
I reiterate that a lot too, of like, we kind of use the fear of missing out tactic on like VIP buyers, like you just said, of like, hey, you got first looks. Could you take pictures, etc. But something I do, which I'm no expert at all in Dispo, I just try to relay things to my team. But I'm like, hey, we'll give you all the deals in this area if you want, but if you're not ready to perform or go out, like I plan on having this assigned like soon.
Mhm.
Do you kind of take that same like fear of missing out and just being like stern?
I do. And I'm very honest with people when they want to give me an offer. And I'm like, listen, I don't hold deals. It's first with EMD. And I can tell you, I have several people who, it's on them. Either they're walking it and doing EMD or they've already done that and they have the information. So that's all on you. But I'm not holding any property for you because I can't be a week out from closing and I need to go tell my seller, like, I trusted you and believed in you and you were full of shit. That comes back to me, and that's the last thing I want is my name burned in this business because I have too much faith in other people. I've been there. I've done that. Those things have happened to me and I fell on that sword. I take completely responsibility for that because I believed it. That was my fault. That was a lesson learned. Like that, this isn't an easy industry. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's hard work.
Yeah,
And
mentally.
it's relationships. And trust me, everyone you see out here locking up deals, like they want to talk about locking up deals, but the real question is, how many did you actually close in Dispo? How many did you get paid on? Because I know the real answer. I've been in Dispo in this whole industry for as long as I have been, and transaction coordination. I know who's full of shit and who's not. Like
Yeah.
it,
And
and
so do you
if
think that everybody coming in should start on Dispo to see that? Or how do you look at, like, just to understand? Because like you said, some people just lock up deals to, like, for example, in titanium, to just post Concord and post a deal and then don't realize they're fucking you on the back end. So do you think it would help by having people start that way, or how do you look at that, or like how do you reiterate the importance of that up front on acquisitions?
I can tell you that me starting in Dispo was very beneficial. I wouldn't have done it any other way. I don't think I would have made it had I not started in Dispo. It would have been a mind fuck. I would have lost faith in myself, lost hope, belief, because you're seeing all this stuff out there that actually isn't reality. It's not true. Don't believe everything you see. That's all I have to say on that. Dispo did teach me how to learn a market. It did teach me how to know how to comp and underwrite and analyze deals. I just reverse engineered all of that. And I use that to know, okay, maybe I'm not great at understanding what goes into construction costs and rehab and stuff, but I can see where these people bought at in this condition. I know as long as I'm below that, I can sell my deal. I don't need to know everything else and the exact numbers. But if you're starting in acquisitions, absolutely you better know that. Because your Dispo person, I'm going to tell you right now, is going to look at your deal. They know where it has to be to move it. They're not even going to look at it. They're not going to put it out there. It's just the truth of it. Like, I'm not going to waste my time on a deal that I'm limiting myself on who my buyers are and how much time and energy and resources I have to use to move that deal. And if it's a big headache and I'm just going to be punched in the face left and right with like a miracle that it moves, I'm not doing it. I'm moving on to one I know is going to sell. It's business. It's not personal. It's no hard feelings. It's put some reps in, learn the game, and then come talk to me. I'll tell you, and I'll tell you why and where it needs to be. But what I find is a lot of people have big egos because the sexy thing is to get a contract, and they want to coach you and teach you and tell you how it's done. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. Like, that doesn't bother me. My response to that is, okay, that's your business model. Go do it then. Why did you come to me? Because that's not my business model and I'm not going to move it. Go ahead.
When you get shit deals, first off, it's just going to piss you off, especially after a
Oh,
couple.
yeah.
You're not even going to want to work with them. You're just going to be like, all right, yeah, I'm not dispoing your deals.
Yep.
But like you said, the wasting of the time, like I have tried to dispo. Like I said, I'm not very good at it. To me, it's 2 or 3 times harder or 5 times harder than acquisitions.
Oh,
Like there is so much that has to go into it. And I mean, just the coordinating of buyers, tenants, is it vacant, lock boxes, transaction coordination, like, and so it's already a pain in the ass. You don't want to deal with shit deals. And that's why it's so important, I think, for the acquisitions and dispo to be in contact about that. Like, look, here's what you sent me. It's not ever going to work. Moving forward, don't do this. Here's what we got to do.
mm-hmm.
Obviously, you need to get on the phone, and that's the best way to vet some of these buyers. How important is that? Like, because I see a lot of people that's like, well, I texted 50 buyers from this platform, and I talked to 2, and like they don't realize you're never going to sell a deal through text or email.
You're not. You're not. I can tell you right now, I have tons of buyers that send an email. They will never look at it. They will never open it. You can send a text, but you're not going to blast them in a text. It's a personalized, hey, I got one over here I think you'll like. Do you want one? And they'll say, send me the details. Like, it's that kind of relationship. These are friendships. They are working relationships. This is not a throw your shit out there and expect everyone to come running. Like, that's not how it works. Dispo, actually, believe it or not, is the sales side of this business. Acquisitions is not sales. Dispo is sales. And I think people mess that up all the time. Like, they think on the acquisition side, they need to learn sales. No, you need to learn people skills and how to be a buyer. Like, what is it do you need that you want if you're in a deal? And also, what does that do for your dispo team, right? Like, are you proactively asking for photos? Are you proactively asking for access? Do you understand the market that you're in? Can you comp the deal? Like, has there been sales there? Are there listings there? Are things active, pending? Like, all of that goes into dispo, so you can put together, I want to call it a marketing package, but you don't blast it out that way. It's information gathering for you personally. So when you're on the calls, you can have educated conversations with your buyers. Because how silly do I look if I'm calling you, Tyler, and I'm like, hey, I have something I think you might want to buy on XYZ Street. And you're like, okay, tell me the details. What is it? And I'm like, well, I have no clue. Are you going to talk to me?
No, now they don't even want it. Yeah.
No. And then, well, how do I access it? Oh, shit. I don't know. Maybe next month. I don't know. Let me see. Like, come on.
Yeah. And then that's where that's just a shitty acquisitions job. And then that's where that communication comes between you guys, because Dispo, you should never reach out to the seller. So acquisitions is going to have to reach back like, hey, I forgot to ask you everything. Like, like you said, every single time in your business, I know in mine, like a mandatory is send photos, whether it's a Google Street or not, access, preferably vacant. Are we going to get a lockbox, etc.? How do we contact the tenants if not? A picture of our calculator, rehab calculator, to show here's what I'm seeing. And so, like someone like you that's super experienced, you could probably just look at that calculator off rip, and before you move any further, be like, "Hey, this ain't a deal," and just because you don't want to waste time on it. And And then also, once the acquisition sends you that many, it's like the boy who cried wolf. If
Yep.
you see 10 from me and 9 of them were straight shit, you're not even going to look at my next one like to Dispo. You're going to be like, hey, dude, just like start sending your stuff to RJ and them or something like,
Mhm.
sorry, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And then I liked how, so you said you say a range of ARV. I like that.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming you do the same like on rehab. You don't say $10,000. You say cosmetic or you say medium, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so I don't give a number on rehab. I don't even give a range on rehab. I give like a description of what rehab is needed, right? Like medium, light, whatever. And then I kind of give like a detail of what I consider light, because what you consider light may be totally different. Like I have to make sure we're on the same page with our conversation and what our definitions of light, medium, heavy rehabs are. Um, and then once I get them to agree, I lead it with like, it all depends on what finishes and the amount of work you're going to put into it and like what systems you have in place with your crews. Like your cost is going to be different than mine. However, I don't think it would be unrealistic for it to be at whatever price, and then I have them say yes or no. So I
Well,
kind of like guide them down that path.
yeah, that's something that I think on the acquisition side, a lot of people don't know is like a house has multiple ARVs. Like
Mhm.
it's not set in stone. I'm going to fix this house. It's going to be worth 200,000. Like you may put in fish tanks and a moat or something, and I might just fucking paint over the outlets. Like it just depends on what
Yeah.
you're doing. It's like a sliding scale with rehab and ARV.
Yep.
Um,
And
so now,
sometimes you don't want to do an entire rehab in that market. If you can bring it just below and like keep your costs down, sometimes you're making a bigger spread in that than if you went all out. And so that's like up to the investor to decide, but I do see that as well, and acquisitions should be aware of that. It's really how much money do you want to put in, how much time, how much are you managing, and what can you get out of that. So like, is the reward, which is, time, money, energy. It takes a lot to manage crews, coordinate all of that for investors. And sometimes they just make decisions where I'm not going to go all out on this property. People are buying at this price as long as it's livable and can be approved for a loan. Like I can put 10,000 in and make 30.
yeah,
That's up to the
yeah,
investor. You just have to be aware of your comps.
exactly. And everybody does it different. That's why like people are like, oh, it's. I hate when someone says what the rehab is, like the number, because it's like, well, Jim Bob might do this himself, and he can do it for half the price as someone that hires out everybody. So everybody's different. Everybody's strategy is different. Whether they're going to, are they going to Airbnb this? Are they going to rent this? Like you never know. So how do you go about, say you walk them through the numbers, you get them kind of to agree to an ARV range, a light thing or whatever. How would you educate them on these numbers, or do you wait until like, do you educate or tell them the numbers on the first call, or do you like just what's your say you call a buyer right now? What's your typical process?
Um, so it all depends. Like, is it a new buyer? Is it a buyer I already have a built relationship with? Like, what? And I have to understand what the purpose of my call is during that time. Is the purpose of my call to verify my numbers and check my numbers and get them to a walkthrough? Or am I past that and I'm getting them to do an offer? Like, I need to know what the purpose of that phone call is and the goal of that phone call. Like, they're two different steps in the process.
Yeah, so say you're cold outreaching to a buyer. you've never spoke to, you've got them from, we'll say, a credible place that you
Mhm.
think, they're already vetted. It looks good. They're definitely buying. What would be your exact process of, like, do you start with the, hey, I got a deal over here you might be interested in, and then on that same call, do you run them through the numbers? And then also, what is your main goals on, say, every call? Like, are you trying to get a number no matter what it is? Are you wanting to get an offer out of every single buyer, or at least try to?
Good question. I'm not trying to necessarily get an offer or a number. What I am trying to get, especially if I have a deal and I'm reaching out for the first time, I want them to agree with me that my ARV range in that area is correct. I'm building credibility by my knowledge, and them agreeing to me. Um, I'm building credibility by my rehab, but I also let them know, listen, until this is verified, this is the information I have. That could change, which would be a different conversation for me to have at a different time. But based on what I have in front of me right now, and then I'm being honest with them. I'm being open. I'm not bullshitting them. Like, I'm actually here to provide value to them and not, I don't know, just waste my time and build a name for myself. I have no idea. So that's what I am trying to do. And I am trying to get them to commit to a walkthrough. Now, there are some buyers that won't do a walkthrough and they will buy sight unseen. That is very rare. Don't get your hopes up for that. But if you've built an established relationship, you can very easily get there.
Yeah, awesome. So, um, how many of them buyers say they're already vetted? You find them on this. I mean, obviously, you want most of them to walk it, but how many do you think, say, out of 10 buyers, like, do you get to walk a property?
Oh gosh, out of 10,
Like, on an average, yeah, you think like one or maybe
one.
three or one?
One.
Yeah.
It all depends. Really, it all depends. On the phone call that day, probably 1 in 10. And really, I don't know my KPIs on that right now. I would say it it all depends. How close are they to the property? What other projects do they have going on? Um, what time of day it is? Like, that depends. Now, will I have them schedule a walkthrough? Yes. In 10, if I've gotten a hold of 10 buyers, 2 or 3, easy.
Okay.
Especially if my numbers are right and I get them to agree to it, yes. If I've gotten them to agree that my ARV is correct, right? And I call them out. I let them know, like, I see you purchased this for this price. I do say that because
Yeah,
now
and
they know.
so that's something I kind of like I said, I'm just kind of learning Dispo stuff. I'm more on the acquisitions, but something that I tell my team is, like, when they call these people, try to mention those things. That way they know, like, you're legit, you've done research, you're not just some
Yep.
random person. So, like, kind of what I told them this morning is like, hey, Jenni, I see you're buying in Franklin Valley. You
Mm-hmm.
got a place over here on 6th Street. I got one right there near you. You still buying? Is
Right.
that kind of how you go about it? Like,
I
that kind of
do.
builds credibility and research. And
Absolutely, I do. It lets them know that I've spent some time researching them, right? Like, I'm not just some fly by night, whatever person. I've spent time, like, investing, researching them to give them what they want. Like,
yeah,
you know, um, I, that's absolutely what I do. One thing I will add on that is, if I see they've done something on this street, once I'm a little further in the conversation, you have to, like, kind of weave it in appropriately, is like, oh, I saw the price you purchased at, and I'll insert the price, right? Like, that way they know I've done a little more research than just finding their name. Like, and once you've done it long enough, you can draw conclusions based on the numbers you're seeing in the data. Like, whether it was a flip, a rental, like if it was a flip and it was this quick and the pictures aren't that different, what strategy they used, like on their exit. If it's somebody I don't know, I've never spoken to before, I do try and get their strategies. Like, what's working for you right now? What is your exit? Like, let me know so I can feed these types of deals to you. That is important. I try and ask how many deals they have done. And I do ask what their goal is and how many deals they're trying to accomplish. And then I set myself up so that, like, let me help you accomplish your goal. Let me help be a part of driving you to your goal.
Yeah, I love that. And that's kind of like building the credibility again. And like I tell my team is like, you're not just some dispo at this company in a cubicle. Like, no, you need to go in the mindset of like, I'm the dispo, like I'm the shit. I'm here to help. So like, how important is the mindset and kind of what is your overall mindset in this? Because I feel like you have to be some sort of like pit bull at a level of this and not take no shit. So what is your mindset, going into talking to these buyers?
You do, but there's a fine line you walk, right? Like, I'm not going to go in like calling names and I'm the best. Like, there's a fine line, right? Like, I create credibility by like showing them I've done my research on them. I see the area. I know my numbers. I know what you've purchased at. Like, here I am, like establishing credibility and a working relationship with this person. That way I can avoid them walking all over me when I am speaking to them. Like, because I will say, I have had people, and I had to learn the hard way, like tell me some off the wall shit and like numbers that doesn't even make sense. But had I not done my research beforehand, I would have just taken that for what they said. I then am like, no, I correct them and let them know, like, you're not just going to tell me some shit. I can see what you've done. Like, here it is, right? And then just bring them back down to reality a little and then get them back on my side of, how do I help you reach your goals and get to those numbers and where you want to be, so that we're on the same team. I'm not here against you at all. I'm here with you. I insert myself and make money in the middle. If you're okay with these prices, like, let's move on. Like, nobody should ever that you're working with, because this is one big collaboration is what it is. It's one big team. We may be separate companies, but we are on a team together. Like, you are feeding me, I am feeding you, all the way around. There's no reason to fight over it. Nobody wins then. You're not buying a deal, I'm not selling a deal, neither of us made money. The whole point is to make money. As much as people want to say, I want to help you, I want to do, yes, we all do. We all do. But at the end of the day, none of us are doing this for free. Not a single one of us. And I dare somebody to tell me they are. Like, the warm and fuzzies, that's great. And it is about helping people, yes. But there has to be some kind of return, Let me help you, help me. Mm-hmm. We missed that.
So how do you have certain VIP buyers that, obviously in a certain area, if you get one, before you ever do any marketing at all, do you just reach out and say, hey, I got this one. Do you want to check it out? And then do you hold off marketing until you get their feedback?
I do, because it's like kind of instant. It's like, it's not pushing back my end result. So like, I'm not going to wait 12 hours for that. Like, it's like a 30-minute, maybe an hour window. That's what that is. And that's how quick it should be, especially if they are your true VIP buyers. It shouldn't be anything more than that.
Yeah. So that brings me to another good point of, so you get a contract, you might not have exact times and exact days, but like there you said you reach out to them in an hour. at what point, 2 days, 3 days, nothing's moving, you're not getting walkthroughs. Is there certain points or milestones you're like, we need to renegotiate or something? Like, is there set days in that or times or how do you decide?
There is, but it all depends. Like 3 days, what have you done in that 3 days that you're not getting walkthroughs is my first question for anyone on Dispo. Like, have you exhausted all avenues, right? Like, are you finding ways to get buyer data? Did you just put it up there and you're expecting people to call you in 3 days? Because that's a completely different story. Now, if it's 3 days and I've busted my ass and pulled every list and I've called like 100 buyers, let's say, and I'm pulling buyers from Investor Lift, I'm pulling buyers on PropStream, I'm pulling buyers on Privy, I'm pulling buyers from County Data, I'm pulling buyers from Investor Base, I'm pulling buyers like even from relationships with other buyers I have, like, is there another guy in that area? Can I get people to give me information that way all the time. If I've done that, that's a conversation of, I have to tell my acquisitions person, like, your numbers are way off. And the only reason I can do that is because I've gotten that much feedback. I've gotten people to tell me my numbers are wrong. Nobody's buying in this market. That's everybody's moved on from that market. We're somewhere else. Like, so it all depends. Let me tell you, if it's been 3 days and you haven't called anyone, and I'm saying in 3 days' time, a minimum, you should have placed 100 phone calls. Bare minimum.
Yeah, and I think that's where everybody goes wrong. Especially nowadays with Investor Lift. They just think they can post it and it's going to sell itself.
No,
but as I said earlier, like, Dispo is tough. And I tried it for like an hour. Oh yeah, I did it for like an hour on a live last week. Literally talked to like 3 people and was like, yeah, this ain't me. Like, and I pushed it on, but
it's work. It's work. And the reality is most people are lazy. They don't want to do the work. And like, you're not going to be successful unless you put in the work, is what it really comes down to. It is a job. As much as we want to say we don't have a job, if you're not doing it, you better make sure somebody on your team is doing it. It's work.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple.
Yeah, and that's like you said, the importance of calling. You're never going to sell a deal just through those things. So say you go through all that, you reached out, it's been 3 days, you hit your thing. Are you, buyers say they aren't interested. No one's went and walked it necessarily. Are you still trying to get them to say a number so you can take it back to your acquisitions to say, look, we need to be under this? Or do you like make sure you have walkthroughs first? Or like, what if none of these buyers are even like, I don't even want to get walking? Do you try to get like that's
a different conversation. If they don't even want to go walk it, I want to know why they don't want to go walk it. Is it the location? Because if it's the location and every buyer's telling me that, I'm probably not going to have a buyer. Doesn't matter what the number is. There are houses, I can tell you, properties, it doesn't matter, commercial, single family, vacant land. Listen, at the end of the day, even if you gave it to somebody for free, there are properties that nobody will take, even for free. So,
oh yeah, we've had them in Toledo. Literally, buyers have said, "I wouldn't give you $500 for this."
Yeah,
and so yeah,
buyers will also tell you, like, you couldn't pay me to take that property.
Yeah,
and you're paying them. Don't take it personally. Just understand what that means for you. Like, it's not you. Like, it's not you personally. It's learning lessons. Like, location is huge in real estate. Everybody talks about that. know your numbers, know your markets, know, like, if people are telling me I'm not going to walk that property and they're not even giving me a number, is it why? What about that property is wrong? Is it location? A lot of times that's what you'll find out, is its location. A lot of times, yeah.
So say you reach out to all them, you have had a couple walkthroughs. For each walkthrough, do you try to get a number?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Afterwards,
Yeah.
100%.
Even if
Yes.
they're like, we're not close, it's like, I still want to know, like, where would
Oh
you
yeah.
be?
Like, okay, I understand you're not close. Where do we have to be so we are close? Like, because I can have that conversation and see if I can get you there.
And then you're wanting at least what, 3 or 4 offers before you ever like take that to heart. Like you're not going to take
On
one
a
buyer.
number?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes. 3 minimum, bare minimum. If I have people that are walking it and giving me feedback on a number. Now, if the feedback was like, I'm not even going to go walk it, like, no, that's an exception to that rule. There are exceptions to rules, right? But yeah,
Okay.
I want 3 confirmed, like, my ARV is right. Like, tell me what's going on here. Tell me where you have to be.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to, so say these buyers or one buyer walks it, you get them agree to say ARV, even you're close on rehab or maybe you're off a little, whatever, but what if they're just basically like, your numbers are wrong, I don't see it, and you're like, how are you educating them? And I mean, is it just some buyers are stubborn and they just ain't going to get it, or like how do you take them from this ain't a deal to this is a deal?
So some buyers are stubborn, and you have to remember, like, who do you want to work with? Like, I'm not begging for people's business. Either we get along or we don't. Like, some people, I don't care how much they want to pay me, the money is not worth the headache. I can tell you that from experience. And there are people I will not. I don't care how much they're going to pay. I won't. I'll pass it off to somebody else and say, "Hey, you can go sell it to them," but I just won't, because the headache isn't worth it to me. So you have to think about that. And then so stubborn buyers. Sorry, I lost where I was going with that one, because I was thinking of different scenarios in my head where it was a fucking headache. So you got me in that zone. But yeah, no, I educate them, because I'm like, really? Because I see this sold for this. I see you purchased here. Like, what am I missing?
Yep.
And then I get them to talk, right? And they're explaining to me, and I'm like, well, isn't that what I said? So this is a deal, no? Like, you would purchase? And usually, like, we laugh about things and they come to their senses. You just
Yeah.
have to stay firm on what you know. And
And
you make sure you have data to back it up. You're not just
that's
talking from your
the biggest thing I think on this side is like dealing from strength and like so we had a buyer, he claimed to be the biggest buyer in the world and he's going to give me this, and he was like bad talking us, like talking down to Helen, saying, like, good luck selling this, if you do assign it to somebody, they're just going to bring it to me, I'm the only buyer here, Google me. And I think he was a buyer, but I just told Helen, I said, tell him kick rocks, take him off the list, we don't ever want to deal with him again, congratulations. And so then he started messaging me on Facebook, sorry, apologize, I want to do deals. And I'm like, awesome, I'm glad you do deals, but we just don't want to deal with you.
Yep.
And we left
Yes.
that. So how important is that dealing from strength? And like you said, is it worth a headache? There's other buyers out here.
Yep. But listen, I am not desperate enough in my life and my age that I'm going to deal with anybody else's shit. I have enough shit going on in my own life. I have 2 kids. I have a husband. I have other family members, that it's a lot. It's chaotic, right? Like I'm already orchestrating a freaking circus around here. I don't want to deal with anybody else's shit. I have enough of my own. So I just don't. And I just write it off as that. I don't take it personally. Like I may like this person outside of business, right? We may be friends, but in a business relationship, I don't want to fucking deal with you. And I don't. So good luck. Like find somebody else to feed you deals because I'm not. And that's just the truth. I'm just being honest. A lot of people don't like to be honest in this industry, but I don't know. If there's one, there's more.
Yeah, and that's like
only one. Do you want to be in that market anyways? Probably not.
Exactly. And you were just talking about like honesty, and I mean like honesty, dealing from strength and being straightforward and just like standing your ground is such a big part of this. You're going to have buyers try to beat you up and lowball you and basically try to overtake the situation. So what's your secret top best ways to like build yourself up and your credibility of like, look, like I do this, you're not going to run over me?
Well, okay, so there's a couple of things, right? Listen, at the end of the day, they want to get the best price they can. That's their business. We want to get the highest price we can. That's our business, right? It works both ways. So you cannot look at it as like, this person's a jerk, this person's a dick. You have to stay firm and tell them where you are at. You have to provide the data and the information that backs up what you are saying. Do your research. Learn from them if you can. Don't fight them. Learn. Like, pick their brain. Listen, when I started, I was the annoying toddler that was like, why? How? Who? When? Why? I wanted to know. I was nosy as fuck. I was annoying. I had to be. Like, I had to learn somehow. And how do our kids learn? They ask a million questions.
Oh yeah,
so
when you were saying that,
I'm not going to fight you. I'm just going to be the annoying kid that's like, hey, hi, question.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, watch this. Yeah.
And get a good mentor. Find mentors. Find people who are actually in the business doing the business and that are willing to hold your hand, that are willing to support you. One of these investors that you want to be one of your buyers, right? Like, ask if you can be their runner. Learn from them. Work for free. That's what people need to learn. Like, yeah, everybody wants to get paid, but like, what did you do to deserve to get paid? Are you willing to work for free to learn?
I love that. And I'm huge on, you know me well enough to know I'm huge on just like bring value. And it's literally a total mindset switch, and it works so good because people are like, I'm going to ask for help. Well, then you just become a nagging little, like, I don't even want to deal with you. Get away here, you little gnat. But if you just keep bringing value to people, like that will come around and then people will want to give to you. That's just how it works. And so I agree with you on like reach out to these people, and instead of saying, hey, can you help me do Dispo? Be like, hey, can I shadow you? Or hey, can I help you? Or what do you need me to do? Do I need to go take pictures? Do you want me to TC? And then you build that respect, and then all of a sudden you got a good mentor.
Yeah, I will say people are willing to help you when you don't need help, when you don't ask for help. The second like you need it, where's everybody at?
Mm-hmm.
They're not there. So instead of acting like the needy child or whatever that everybody's annoyed with, and let's be real, like that's a real thing. This is reality. Let's not sugarcoat things. Act like the person who's like willing to do something for information versus being like just a handout. People are willing to do way more for you than if you're constantly taking.
I agree. So what are some non-negotiables for you, such as what is your EMD policy? What is your title company policy? How do you go about that? How lenient are you there? Or
So,
if
really,
it's a buyer you've never done a deal with?
If it's a buyer I've never done a deal with, okay, so has that buyer closed and do I have proof that they have closed? And how many deals, right? Because if I don't have proof of that, like, no, I'm controlling the situation. Now, EMD is a non-negotiable, and that is 24 hours. If you don't have EMD in there, we don't have an assignment. Like, I'm sorry, and I am going to continue to market this. And if somebody beats you to EMD, like, oh, well, sorry for you. I told you. Like, get your shit together. Because I have mine together. I expect you to have yours together. Title companies, that's a tough one. I do have preferred title companies that I work with. However, if I have a solid buyer with a proven track record, we will switch title companies. I don't prefer it though. But you have to do what you have to do. And there are exceptions. These are not hard, fast rules, if you will. EMD is absolutely, that's not negotiable.
What is your typical EMD?
It all depends. Like, I'm not going to, so if I have a $15,000 property, I'm not going to ask for 5-10 grand in EMD. I might ask for 2,500, but five grand, usually 10, depending on like where we're at in numbers and price range we're talking. Because if you can't put that in, like, are you really even a buyer? If you can't afford that, how are you going to afford what else comes along with that? You know?
So then do you ask them how are they funding this? And then if you do and say they say hard money, do you dive into that any deeper or no?
No, I don't. Because public records usually tells me, like, and I can go in and I can see how they funded their deals. I just read the information on it. I can tell if it's hard money. I can tell if it was private money. I don't really ask. If it is a buyer that I have zero evidence anywhere, yeah, I do vet them. And yeah, I do make them send me a proof of funds. And yeah, you bet your ass I'm calling the bank to see if I had a check for XYZ amount of dollars. Will my check clear? I don't want to know how much is in their account. Does this name match? And will my check clear? That's all I want to know.
Awesome.
So yeah, I do that.
So obviously I'm just jumping all over the place here. Sorry,
It's okay.
not David Letterman, but so what are just some of the things that you see in the industry of dispo people that either they don't know or they just suck at? Like some pet peeves or things you see that's like everybody watching this is going to get something from.
Ooh, sitting back and thinking like your deal is going to sell itself, thinking that a pretty marketing package is going to sell your deal, because it's fucking not. It's absolutely not. Sometimes you have to get creative in where you find your buyers. Think outside of the box. Think of like all the places you can find the information and the processes people go through to get a deal. Where is that information housed? Think outside the box.
Yeah, and I know you probably won't want to dive super deep in it to your vault of secrets, but so obviously people, I assume, know you can go on Investor Lift, find buyers. You can go to PropStream, all this, download the cash list buyers. We can go on Zillow, reverse engineer, all that. What are some different ways that you find very effective that people don't know about that they should be taking advantage of? That's just like, I feel like nobody knows any of the things you know. And so, like, give me just a couple of them. Where are you doing this? How are you doing it?
County records. It all depends, right? Like your courthouse, who records your deeds, where all these things held and kept. Become friends with code enforcement people. Become friends with your clerk at the court. And listen, there are counties where things are not electronic, even in 2024. Drive your ass down there. Build relationships, talk to people. Title companies, reps, talk to them. Bring them lunch. Do a, I don't know, event where you're providing value and information that you're sponsoring and hold it there.
Yeah, I love all of them. And to me, as you were saying it, I was just thinking, like, really, people just don't want to put the work in. Like,
Exactly. That's what it is. They're lazy. People are lazy. Very much.
They want to take a couple pictures and make some highlighted marks and some emojis and call it good. Yeah, I think that's something I haven't been doing that we need to do is talking to the title companies about it. And, who's your investors? Because like you said, it's a team game where everybody wins. Like, hey, who's looking? Who's your investors? I'll bring every deal to you. And then it's a rotating, same thing with like agents or realtors. But yeah, I can't stress enough how big like networking and relationships are.
Yeah. One thing I did, there was a title rep that I really liked, and she provided so much value to me. And I would go visit her and I would offer to help on certain things. I also would like give gift cards, as Christmas gifts and things because of our friendship that we built, because I was willing to spend time with her and pick her brain, but not just ask a million questions like, hey, she would have to run to the post office and drop something off while she was in the middle of scheduling something. Let me just take care of that for you. And I did that, right? And I was able to see like investors who were coming in and out. I was there. I spoke to them. I was able to ask her like, hey, I'm desperate right now. I don't know what I'm doing. This is what I have. Can you help me? Do you know anyone that would buy this? And I will open title with you because I don't have a clue where to start.
Yeah, and so you were bringing value. You bring value and reciprocate. I mean, you're saying take them lunch and think. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's thinking that creative. I mean, these buyers, like you said, if you just reverse engineer it, what has to happen for a buyer to buy a property? Then go dig in all those places and figure it out.
So exactly, and we all go through title. I literally had no clue what to do. And I was like, hey, all I know is I have a contract. I know I need a buyer. I don't know where to start. I know I have to open title. This is what I have. Can you look at my document and can you help me, please? She was more than happy to do that because that file stayed with her. Her investor was happy. And she got paid.
Yeah, and then now you have a new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love about, we use the same pretty much title company always too. Maybe one here and there, a different one. We tried the buyers thing three times. Once it worked with their title company. There too, it was a straight shit show. And So that is now a non-negotiable for us. I don't even care. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've not thought of that. So we'll probably start calling every title company in Ohio next week and building more relationships and finding these investors.
Yeah, it helps.
And then, so yeah, so there's some creative ways of doing it.
Listen, how do deals die? Title issues, right? I don't care if it's a banger deal, like so much money is there. If there are title issues or you have a title company that is lazy as shit and not proactive, doesn't reach out to anyone, like your deal's not moving. Stay on top of it. Help them. Help them learn how to do these things, learn what they need for a transaction to close, educate yourself on how to make sure you're clearing these issues for them.
Yeah,
Like,
I love it.
be
And
proactive.
so I've only had a couple title companies that was just straight horrible. Like we typically reach out daily to title, whether it's just that, hey, what's up? Hey, you need anything? And that's kind of what I tell my guys are reach out to title every day, ask them what's going on. Is there anything I can do? Once again, bringing value. And then if they're like, oh, just waiting on you know, the seller to send over this document. Like, okay, I'll reach out to them. Cool. I'll get a hold of them. They can't reach them. Start calling them. Hey, title's trying to get a hold of you. Only thing we're waiting on is that. Can you get it over?
Yep.
And
yeah, don't wait around. Be proactive. They have a lot going on. They really do. You're not their only file. You're not. Like, that's the truth. And some just are new, and some have been in it long enough and they're comfortable where they're at, right? Help them help you close your deal.
they're going to move you up their priority ladder too by doing that. Like, oh, hey, Jenni's doing, like, she'll help us. Like, we can knock this out easy. Like, she'll pretty much do it for us. You know what I mean? Like, in a obviously respectful, nice way. But
and that's what I was getting at. The more you do that and the more you provide for them, the more they're willing to do for you.
Yep.
It's relationship.
Value. Yep. Value in relationships.
Yep. Look, you got me on here looking crazy.
So how important is, I know it's very important, we just hit it, but like communication with title, like, are you guys daily as well? How much? So you got a contract, you've got the purchase agreement at title, you've got an assignment, you've already sent it to title. How often are you hitting that seller? How often are you hitting title? How often are you hitting the buyer? Because like I tell my team, at this point, we're just the glue. You just don't let shit mess up pretty much.
So it all depends where we're at and what title issues we have, how strong our title company is, have we worked with them? But yes, I do want to know. Some deals, like, it's just weekly updates. Some sellers are more needy than others. Some sellers don't give a shit and don't want to know, and they don't want you to call them a million times. I at least try to email with updates constantly. I like to keep, even though I'm making phone calls, yes, I like to keep a paper trail of all of it.
Yeah.
I just hold people accountable. I really do. So yes, like, you may see a weekly email go out, but understand there was like 25 phone calls before that email, because I'm not going to email you every single step, but I will email you when something changes or a significant mile marker in our transaction has happened. Like, are we moving forward, or do I need more information? Like, some details, like, you just don't need to tell everyone, just give them the information that's needed. And at the end, yes, especially if it's a new title company, new working relationship, oh yeah, every day I'm talking to somebody. And listen, Don't be fooled, because you can call and they'll say one thing. You call tomorrow and talk to somebody else and it's a completely different story. Like, don't believe everything you hear. That's why I like paper trails.
Okay, as far as on the kind of coordinating it side with the buyer walkthroughs, I mean, typically, perfect scenario, it's vacant, with a lockbox. If
Yep.
not, it's just the general how it works. How are you setting the stage, knowing you're going to have multiple walkthroughs likely,
Mm-hmm.
and just being as open and upfront as possible, obviously, with the sellers? So how are you coordinating that to make them feel comfortable? And then also, we'll just do that first.
So I like my acquisitions people to set the stage with that. They're the people who have built the rapport and have that relationship. I also like them to set the stage of, I am passing this off to somebody else on my team with an introduction of who that person is, what their responsibility is, and what they can expect from that person, and whether you're still going to be involved or not on the acquisition side. So that's how I handle that. And then moving forward, depending on the situation, right? Like, some people, it may not be beneficial for me to be introduced, and that stays with acquisitions. As long as I am constantly updating my acquisition person, that's what's really key in those situations. But yeah, usually acquisitions, they need to let them know, like, hey, I'm getting multiple bids here. We're going to need multiple walkthroughs. Like, what does that look like? Is there a specific time of day? Like, is it owner occupied? Is it vacant? Vacant's obviously best, right? If it is a property where the owner, for any reason, is going to be there or be involved, I try my absolute best, and it doesn't always work out, but I try my absolute best where, if I've had somebody who's taken photos for me, or I have a friend in the area that's in the industry that understands what needs to happen, to be present. I also let my buyer know all negotiations go through me. You're not talking price with the seller. Now, you have people that do that, but I like to have things put in place, like, to avoid that at all costs. Sometimes you can't. There are shitty people out there.
Well, that was going to be my next question is the standards you set with buyers before, obviously about price and stuff, but what does that actual conversation look like? Like, how stern and straightforward is it? How, like, is it a friendly type thing, or like a, hey, look? And, so what does that look like?
Um, so it is friendly up front, right? But when I get down to it and I let them know, yeah, I am very stern. And I let them know, like, hey, I have no problem letting other people in the industry know. Like, I do have a network, and it may not be a huge network, but I do know people, and I will let them know, like, we just don't do that. Like, I don't do business that way, and I won't do business that way. And I will let people know in the area that I know are selling properties there what you did. Now, whether they choose to do business with you or not is on them. Like, I can't, and that's not, I don't say that to them, but personally, what I think is, if they choose to do business with that person, they choose to do business with that person. I can't stop anybody, but I am going to let them know, like, hey, be aware, like, he might go around you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just do one or two more here. I know you're busy. I got a meeting coming up too, but so do you utilize brokerages or agents, or is that a last resort, or do you never do it? And how does that look? Like, I know you don't typically do
I
it, but
was a broker.
yeah,
Um,
so how does that look? And do you pay their commission or have them added on top, or just what does that look like?
there's one agent 2 agents in Florida that I work with. Very good friends of mine. They know the game in and out. They wholesale as well. They add their fee on top. Those are the only 2 agents I will work with. I would rather not.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking of it from the point of like, you know how we reach out to title, you're saying, to get buyers? If you do that same with agents and stuff, but the only downfall then obviously is you're bringing the agent into the equation, and you don't want to, whereas we're already bringing title in. So
if I don't have another strategy and I'm desperate, then of course. And if an agent, I'm not going to not work with an agent. It's not my go-to, right? Like, not a lot of agents work with investors. Like, that's just the truth. So if you're going to go find a retail agent, like on listings, I mean, what's the likelihood they work with investors? Now, if it's an agent that you see represent a flipper, absolutely reach out to them, build the relationship with them. I just go straight to the investor. And the reason I do it, listen, I've had situations where they're the middleman. I don't want to play phone tag. I don't have time for it. I go straight to the investor so I can get shit done.
Okay,
now,
so
they're going to tell their agent to work it. You know what I mean? I'm not cutting anyone out, but that's not. Go straight to the source. Why add a million other steps when you don't need to?
Yeah, totally. And so last thing here, we'll kind of just do a couple bullet points. Say you were training a new Dispo today. We'll say 3, 4, 5 bullet points that has to happen in Dispo, or else you will not move your deals. Such as, number 1, you have to call. What are the top 3, 4, 5 things that if you don't do these, you're never going to succeed?
Oh man, know your numbers, comp, make sure, I don't care who sent it over to you, comp it first, analyze it first, understand your numbers first and foremost. Second of all, understand occupancy, understand the market it's in. Call, pull buyers and call, absolutely call. You have to be on the phone. No, like, you have to. You're not gonna just like create a pretty flyer on Canva and put it up and think you're gonna sell a deal. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people who can do that. They've been doing this for a very long time. They've already built that. They're not new. So if you're new and you think it's gonna happen, it's not.
Sweet. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Appreciate the time, Jenni. Where can people find you to reach out for help or anything they need?
That's a great question, Tyler.
We'll work on it. Jenni will have her stuff up running soon. I'll get you all connected. So
yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate it.